So I'm with Her Grace, the Duchess of Rutland, Emma. It's lovely to be back here. And I haven't been to your garden for maybe 20 years. It's a bit remiss of me, but when I first came, I think you'd only just moved in.
Yes.
And I cannot believe the transformation.
Oh, thank you.
It's looking really superb because you've got hundreds of acres of garden, haven't you? A lot of it woodland, but you've also got these very dramatic terraces which were done by Harold Peto.
Well, this particular bit, that's a bit like the shape of a ship, was designed by Harold Peto.
In the 1920s-ish? Yes.
And then, of course, all the pleasure grounds that go on from here were what had been orchestrated by Capability Brown in the beginning of the 1800s. So yes, I think the gardens have evolved through the duchesses. But what I always struggle with a bit, Bunny, is that actually there was very little flat space because the castle's on a hill.
Yes.
And so you had to really struggle to get any flat, formal type gardens, as mainly many stately homes have. So that's why this is very precious to us here.
Yes. So as I understand it, the 8th Duchess, she used Harold Peto, who was renowned for his sort of Italianate style, and she had been on the grand tour to Italy and she wanted to create something of that feel here.
She did. And even more interesting is that she brought a few bits back as they did then, including the Roman column, which is just round the corner.
Yes.
And it was most probably shipped back. And it should most probably go back. But we've had it now for a few hundred years. But
Haulage would be phenomenal. Far too big.
Exactly. But yes, this was, and it's fascinating for me, Bunny, when you look in the archives, because you suddenly recognise how every duchess who's brought the sort of the character and the inspiration to these gardens and this history, they have also had their own dramas to deal with. So dear old Violet, who was determined to have Harold Peto design these gardens, her husband was horrified because it cost so much. And so there was a great war about it at the time. So these things never stop happening within families.
I'm so glad she won. And I bet when it was finished, he was jolly pleased too. Did he ever say, actually, you were right, darling, do you think?
No, well, we could soon research, but that, maybe not in writing.
And with the research, I understand it was you that that came to light that the plans that Capability Brown did, one of his last commissions to do here. You unearthed the plans from the archives, which should be hidden away in some drawer, and then you did that amazing television programmes with Alan Titchmarsh, and you've restored back a lot of the Capability Brown landscape.
Hundreds and hundreds of acres of overground woodlands, overground lakes and ponds we've dredged.
Yes.
But none of it, because when you read back now, you think, well, she obviously thought that through cleverly. I didn't think a thing through. It just sort of evolved and happened. And when the plans first arrived, I knew of Brown, but not really who he was. So I asked the archivist to put them back in a drawer when we first arrived here in about 2001.
Yes.
And then, unbeknown to me, it was Brown's tercentenary in 2013. And about 2 years before, I felt it was time to get the plans out and look at it. So that's how it happened. And the book happened, and it was just all timing and were on our side, I suppose.
But a real step forward, really, isn't it, to push that back?
Well, it is. I always find it amazing, Bunny, that there were those plans that had been sitting there that were made in 1780, that we put the last bit of woodland in, just as they had been intended.
Yes.
In 2012.
Because you put woodland in, and when I think of Burley, he obviously did a lot of work there, didn't he? And it quickly, his aims, the vistas, the views, quickly become sort of superseded by saplings growing up, trees getting too big, and it needs, you know, quite radical work. I mean, now they're replanting some of the avenues that he envisaged and taking down other ones that he hadn't and things like that. It's quite radical stuff, isn't it?
Yes, and when you look at a wonderful avenue that's aging and old and it's lost a few trees, it's a very brave person that takes those trees out. But that's how this landscaping on that scale is.
Yeah.
You have to just bite the bullet and
Yeah.
do it.
Yeah. And in, 20, 30 years, or quite quickly, they register the new avenue,
Yes.
don't they? I think it's phenomenal.
What we found here, Bunny, is because I haven't in areas been radical enough, the trees are all falling down at about the same time because they're all the same age.
Yes.
And so then they destroy all your new planting underneath, and so you wish you'd been more radical.
Yes, I mean, here you mentioned that there was a big copper beech that fell down very recently, and that, although you think it's dreadful at the time, it's opened up the light. So this new rose garden, which you just planted last year, has benefited massively, isn't it? And I think it's lovely. It's just, a landscape is dynamic, isn't it? And as long as you've got a pretty good end goal in sight, and things do wobble and change, that's what's important, isn't it? It's never going to be statutory like a building.
And never
Or
finished,
stationary.
never finished,
Never finished.
never completed, never. And if something doesn't work somewhere, it'll work somewhere else. It's just that wonderful evolving picture that you're creating with a garden, which is so different to an interior all the time. But an interior, once created, you want it to pretty much stay like that, and time fades it and wears it.
Yes.
But clever gardens just are evolving and becoming more exciting as they grow.
And because here you have more and more visitors, because you put an awful lot of energy into putting Belvoir on the map, haven't you? And so you're making more things for them to come and see. You've got a garden festival coming up in August.
We have.
You've got pixie trails through the woodlands. You've got a venture playground. So, you can come easily spend a day here with all ages, and no one would be bored.
No. And we have a retail village just below the castle.
That was your instigation?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So a farm shop and restaurants and...
Hotel.
Yes.
There's no
Keeps
end
going.
to it.
Keeps going.
And just down below us, there's that lovely pool which you've put in, and you put those two gardens at the lower level. So you have the amazing bird's eye view as you come down and view from the little lookout tower.
Hopefully. I mean, the best view of this garden is most probably from the roof of the castle, but
Right.
health and safety wouldn't let you go there, I don't think. But
Yeah.
yes, no, I think, well, it's really lovely that you think it's come on so much, because day to day, I always see the problems and never the finished article. So
No, but for me to come back, and it's not even sunny, I imagine in the sunshine, it just looks amazing. And you can see why they say that Walt Disney saw this as a young boy, and that was his inspiration
castle.
for a castle. And it does, doesn't it? It does look Walt Disney-esque, but 100 times nicer.
Oh, thank you. That's lovely.
So your next project with the garden?
Next project with the gardens, well, definitely to get the private terraces sorted. So
This is
they
your
are,
private space,
Yes.
which we don't see. Yes.
well, they are seen, they're open. The bottom terrace, I'm looking at doing a whole collection of dahlias. So, and I am looking at opening that when we get that right. Because the time of August, are they good in August?
They're brilliant. So mine started flowering probably July, and you
Yeah.
would be maybe a wee bit later because
Yeah.
you're high.
Yeah.
Yes.
So I just felt that we need to show people, because our spring garden is really dead and gone, but the
Yeah.
walk is fabulous and the trees are great. So we're looking at doing our bottom terrace with dahlias.
Oh, that would be superb. And then water. They love water-rich soil. So you're going to have to pile on the manure, are you? Pile on
Yes.
the water
Yes,
to
have
get
to-
them growing well. Because this must be windy.
It is windy, and as we've said before, it has a real problem with water.
Yeah.
Certainly those terraces. So any tips you can give me about how to get water there would be great.
Yeah. Now, I think we have no mains water, and so I think a pump, when we moved in, we had this massive old Goodwin pump that had been there for hundreds of years, and they'd used for generations. Ours dates back to sort of 1000s. And every Christmas it would break down, the house would fill up, you'd have visitors coming, the loos wouldn't work, you couldn't have water. And then we got this little Japanese pump, sort of this big, cost next to nothing, replaced the Godwin, and I felt awful. But from then on, it's been amazing. and the water pressure's superb. And I'm sure you've got a lot of, you know, you've got big catchment
We've got
tanks.
the water, but it's just getting.
It's just getting up.
Well,
So
let me know.
I'll give you our pump. And we've got one in the wing, so if it ever goes wrong, we just plug the other one in and back it comes
Perfect.
again. So we have no more waterless Christmas. So
love
it does
that.
make a difference.
I'd really love that.
And then you've got 30 grottos,
30 grottos, but only
apparently, in there.
I know. Well, I didn't know that. You've told me, so thank you.
So you found 6, so you've just got
Yes.
another, maybe that would be the grotto hunt instead of a treasure hunt.
Yeah.
You can have people
With the
coming round
pixies.
with the pixies looking for all your grottos. So, I mean, this is going to keep you busy to the end of your days, isn't it?
I think so.
Making them better and better. But you've done a wonderful job.
Thank you, Bunny.
And thank you very much for showing it to us. It's been lovely.
Thank you, Bunny.